Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. This morning, the purpose of the call is just to introduce a new Goldratt's thinking process program. So I'm guessing that most of you will have heard of Ellie Goldratt's thinking process, because otherwise you would not be on the call, and you're at least interested in learning a little bit more about the program and the process and the thinking processes. And I'm going to talk through what I plan to do in my program over the next couple of weeks now. There are a few people already signed up, so we're pretty much nailed on to begin and get on with this. And I'm starting to put together some resources online on my website and so on, so that people can use and we can try. And my ambition is to try and make this a really good program. So I was fortunate enough to do my first Jonah program, as it was then, in, I think it was 1996, so quite a long time ago now. And not only did it have an impact on me in terms of how I think and how I look at situations and how I think about them and how I make decisions and plans to change the situation, it also had a big impact on me personally. So I'm still friends with the guys I did that program with. We're still in touch, and not once a year or anything like that. It's more than that. We're still good friends. So what I would like to do is try to give you guys an opportunity to actually have an experience which is as fun and as productive and as impactful as it was for me and other people who did the program back in those times as well. So let's talk about what it's going to look like. Bear with me a sec. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate now. So the thinking processes are an incredibly powerful set of analytical tools that were developed by Dr. Ellie Goldratt, who is the father and the founder of the theory of constraints. And what Ellie found in the early 80s, when he was working with manufacturing companies and implementing his software, was that the software, when implemented, the OPT software, would gain huge performance increases and improvements when it was implemented, but then the companies would plateau. So you get, minimum 30% increase in output in a very short period of time. Just bear with me a sec. I think we've got someone trying to come in. I'm just going to let Alicia join us. Should be with us any second now. And good morning, Alicia. And so Dr. Goldratt, working with manufacturing companies, implementing the OPT software, huge performance increase and then a plateau. Okay. Now, being the physicist that he was, this was a curious phenomena that he wanted to investigate. So he started to look into it, and what he found and what his team found was that after the scheduling software had been implemented, the companies were plateauing because the constraint was moving elsewhere in the organization. It was no longer in production. It might have been in the supply chain, it might have been in sales or marketing, it might have been in new product development. But wherever the constraint had been in production, it was now no longer the weakest link, and therefore the constraint is shifted, and the focus of the management team had to shift as well. And it wasn't as simple as just implementing a piece of software anymore. There had to be a more rigorous approach to analyzing the situation, understanding the cause and effect relationships within that situation, and developing a breakthrough solution, which is where the name of the program comes from. So the tools are designed to allow you to look at almost any situation, look at the undesirable effects, and then start to understand the cause and effect relationships that boil down to a core problem, which is the cause of all of the effects that we see on the surface. So it's a very sort of science-influenced approach. Yeah. So Goldratt's approaching it from the view that however complex it may seem on the surface, there is an inherent simplicity to the situation, which if you can think about it in the right way, you can discover for yourself. And that's what the thinking processes enable you to do. So whether you're working as a consultant in organizations like myself and Leighton, or you're a senior manager in organizations that a project leader, for instance, like Alicia, you should be able to look at your situation and start to put together the cause and effect relationships, and actually saying, rather than trying to address hundreds of little problems, actually, if I focus my attention on the cause of these problems, I can be much more focused and have a bigger impact on the situation just by doing a smaller number or taking a smaller number of actions. And that's what this slide is trying to convey, really. This is what the thinking process should enable you to do. So that's why I wanted to start the program. Actually, this is, you know, serendipity in action. So the idea to run the program has really come from just talking to people online over the last few weeks, like Jane, who's on the call. And there seems to be a demand out there in people who are interested in the theory of constraints to actually run a program. And there aren't that many options these days to do it. So what I wanted to do was create a program that has a big impact on the way in which you think and operate. And to do that in a way that's convenient and accessible, even in these troubled times where we're experiencing varying degrees of lockdown. It's changing all the time in the UK, so I'm guessing it's similar to for other people as well. And to create a program which is taught by someone who's expert. I've been working in the theory of constraints since 1994. I've done a number of thinking process programs, both as a participant and as a teacher. I use them in my work as a consultant. So I've actually, Jane and I were having a conversation on Facebook yesterday about using the thinking processes to develop new market offers for companies and the process by which you do that. I've done that as a consultant on projects working with companies to do that. I also wanted to make it simple as well. Sometimes, in my experience at least, when people get hold of a new tool, they tend to fall in love with it, and it all becomes a bit sort of a bit internally referenced in, a bit too involved. And what I wanted to do was to keep it simple. Okay, the essence of the theory of constraints and Ellie's approach was always that however complex the situation may seem, there must be that inherent simplicity, okay? So I wanted to teach it in a simple way as well, so easy to understand. Let's just have a go, let's experiment and play, and let's learn by doing, if you like, and have a really straightforward approach to teaching the thinking processes. I want to use real-world examples, so to pull examples from where I've used the thinking processes, but also as a way of learning as well. So I'll talk about this a bit later on, but to actually use a real-life situation and analyze that as the basis of your material or your content for learning within the program as well. And to make use of all of the technology that we have now as well. So to do it on Zoom, to use other social media. And last night I was sat in my kitchen with a glass of wine, and I was creating a membership area for my website so that people who join the program, everything's going to be posted there. So we'll record the sessions, and then the sessions will be posted to the membership area on the website so that you can look at them. We can put participant profiles on there. We can do all sorts of things that make it a richer learning experience, if you like. Also taught in small online groups, so we can, using the technology, I can do obviously a lecture or a session, if you like, for as many people as want to join the call. But what we can then also do is have smaller seminars as well. So rather than being part of a huge audience where you don't get your issues or your questions addressed because of the pressures of time, what we can do is make sure that we have not just the live on sessions when we're all together, but if the numbers are such, we can also arrange smaller seminar sessions as well. So we have a small group of people. You bring your example. You might be writing a cloud or a current reality tree or a future reality tree, whatever it is. You can share the screen, share your work online, and then you can talk us through it, and then you can ask me questions or get feedback from the group on how you improve as a user of the thinking processes as well. So you're going to get that personal feedback as well. Also, to try and make it really convenient, the first time I did a program, I was a young man at university, so it wasn't a big deal to sort of take 2 weeks out and go and do the thinking processes. But if you're working like I am now, then it's not always as easy to do that. And what with travel restrictions and everything at the moment, it's impractical. So the plan is to do short, sharp live sessions, so maybe an hour, maximum 2, recorded, as I've said. So even if you can't make it, you can see it. And then after those live sessions, we will do some short seminars together where you get to ask your personal questions as well. And last of all, it's got to be fun, because if it's not fun, you're not going to use the thinking processes as well. So what we'll try and do is make sure it's fun, it's friendly, it's informal. It's not going to be a sort of high pressure learning type of Harvard business case study type of environment. It's going to be a bit more informal and a bit more friendly than that. Okay. So just to go through some of those things, yeah, that's my background. So I most of you know me, but for those of you who don't know me on the call, and there's a few, I was introduced to theory of constraints by my father in 1994. I was at university at the time. He essentially bribed me to come home from university for the weekend, promises of free transport or free train fare, a meal out, to go for some Indian food in the evening, a few beers and all the rest of it. There was just one small condition to all of that. Was that I would attend a book launch one evening, and it turned out to be Dr. Goldratt launching It's Not Luck. And I think it was a Friday or Saturday night in the UK at the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham. Ellie managed to pull, I think it was almost 700 people for the book launch. There were that many people there for the book launch who wanted to see it. And it was interesting. I really was, kind of intrigued. And as I departed from my weekend at home, being pampered by my mother and having my washing done and all that kind of good stuff, I got back onto the train back to university, a couple of hours train journey. My father handed me a copy of The Goal and said, read that. And that was the start of it. So I attended the Odyssey program, which is a program for young people, where they teach the thinking processes. That was my first introduction to the thinking processes. And I attended that twice. On the second occasion, I did the full thinking process program in 1 week. And then you spent a week with Ellie Goldratt, and he picked a subject out of thin air and said, right, let's apply the tools to analysing and developing a solution for this. And he said, what I'd like to focus on in the next week is how we can use the thinking processes to analyse and come up with a solution that prevents the Second World War. So really setting the bar very high. And we spent a week trying to analyse that, and really fascinating experience. And as I said, still in touch and still friends with the people that I spent that time with as well. I then went to after university, went to the Goldratt Academy. So I spent 5 or 6 months in America, in Connecticut and New Haven, where I did the academy program, and we looked into everything, every corner of the theory of constraints. We spent days and days on. Literally spent weeks in front of the simulators, looking at various aspects of the production and supply chain approaches, project management, strategy, sales, marketing, you name it. Whatever there was in the theory of constraints at that time, we spent a long time on it. Worked for the Goldratt Institute for just under 3 years here in the UK for Oded Cohen, and then went and worked at Ashridge Consulting. Ashridge is a business school here in the UK, for those of you who aren't aware, and it had a consulting practice on the side of it, which I joined, and there was a small group in there of us who were really into theory of constraints, so that continued the journey there. And some of those guys left and formed QFI Consulting, and I followed shortly afterwards. And then I was there for 10 years, but during that time I was a project leader for Dr. Goldratt, leading the Viable Vision projects, which were these crazy projects where he said that we will turn your top line into your bottom line in 4 years or less. So if your sales were 50 million, we're going to generate net profit of 50 million within 4 years. We're going to grow the company to that extent. And that involved a whole company implementation of theory of constraints. So for example, I was working in China for 3 years on one project, still in touch with the people there, fantastic experience. But we implemented the manufacturing approach, we implemented the supply chain approach, we implemented the approach, the critical chain multi-project approach in new product development, we implemented the sales and marketing approach, and all of that combined together to create an improvement in sales. Speaking to the business development director a couple of days ago, they're still using all of that 12 years later, and what they're now doing is not only, and the offer, so they created a new offer to the market, if you like. So they're managing the supply chain for brands in North America and Europe. And the offer was, if you've got a SKU which is moving, we'll manage the stock levels in your warehouse to make sure that you never run out and you never miss a sale. But at the same time, if you've got SKUs which aren't moving as quickly, we will manage down the stock level to an appropriate level and minimize the excess inventory within your stock level. And that way we will increase your inventory turns, you'll sell more, you'll have less in stock. And the ambition was always to go down as far down the supply chain as we possibly could. And I found out the other day that they are now managing the stock levels in the actual shop level. So the consumption points, not just producing the product, but they're also managing the shipment from China to, say, North America. Then from the central distribution warehouse, they're now managing the regional distribution warehouse levels, and now they're even at the shop level. And they're managing what's on display within the shops to maximize sales on behalf of their customers. Which, for a company which was a manufacturer in China and sold container loads of product to brands, which is where they started and where their competitors were, that's quite a journey. So fascinating experience, and I led 2 projects for Dr. Goldratt, and then since 2015 I've been an independent consultant, and whatever I do, really, there's always theory of constraints running through it. So I've got a background in that. The thinking process is a part of what I do, the part of how I think, if you like. And what I wanted to do was create a program which has this curriculum. So it takes you through the process. So it introduces the roadmap, gives you some context to that. So some of us will have been on a call a couple of weeks ago where we looked a bit at the history of TOC. There's a video online if you're interested on my website where I go through that. We're going to look at things like the categories of legitimate reservation. So what are the rules of the game? So this is really about taking that scientific approach to analysing things and making sure what we're writing down as our hypothesis, if you like, for what's happening within the area of our analysis, actually what we're writing down matches what we observe in reality. So that the categories of legitimate reservation, even if you took away one side of A4 on that and applied that to the rest of your career, it would be powerful, believe me. So we're going to go through that, and then we're going to look at the actual tools. So lots of you will have heard of the cloud, the dilemma process. We're going to look at the core cloud process. So how do you take some undesirable effects, write 3 individual evaporating clouds, and then combine that into a generic cloud, which, if you've done it properly, should explain the existence of many undesirable effects within the organization or whatever it is that you're analyzing. We're going to look at breakthrough ideas. So how do we go about creating an idea which substantially changes the reality of the situation? So I'm going to introduce some ideas from other fields like psychotherapy as well, so idea of the thinking of Paul Václavic on first and second order change. And I'm going to, in making a paradigm shift, introduce various bits of the theory of constraints so that you've got an insight into how it differs from the conventional approach and enables you to come up with something that's original and different within that area that you're analysing. Negative branch reservations, that's the tool for making sure that whatever we do or whatever action we take, we don't create negative side effects which are worse than the current situation. So that process there is about analysing what happens when we take a certain action and it could result in a negative. How do we prevent that from happening? The future reality trees ties that all up and proves that our solution gives us everything that we need without the negative side effects. And then we're going to look at the prerequisite trees and the transition trees. And these are really the tools that we use to map out how we cause the change. So if you think about current reality trees and clouds, that's what to change. You think about future reality trees and negative branches, that's what to change to. The link between the two is the transition and prerequisite trees, which is about how do we cause the change. And just as a bonus, if you like, we'll make some links to the strategy and tactics trees. I'm not going to teach strategy and tactics trees on the program because it's beyond the scope of this. But what I will do is just do a short introduction to them so that you can see how the strategy and tactics trees are a superposition, if you like, of the other thinking processes. So I'll make some links and you'll be able to look at a strategy and tactics tree at the end of it and say, I understand this, I know why it's telling me this, I know why it's set out this way, and so on. So here's the roadmap. So Goldratt was always impressing on us that we need to be able to answer 3 questions. So what to change, so that's the undesirable effects going to evaporating clouds, going to the core conflict, and then the current reality tree. You're going to learn how to do all of that. And you're also going to learn how to answer the question of what to change. So if I've got a cloud, a core cloud, how do I create what Ellie called injections? Injections, because it was a new piece of reality coming into the situation. And how do I create a breakthrough solution that I can then prove works through the future reality tree, and I can make sure that I trim any negative branch reservations that I have by using the MBR process, so that prevents those unintended negative side effects. How to cause the change, we're going to look at the prerequisite tree, we're going to look at the transition tree. So varying levels of detail required to make sure the right solution is implemented in the right way. As I said, we're also going to keep it simple, okay? So back in the day, I can remember, you know, sometimes people falling in love with the tools, and it was more about using the tools than it was about the result. Now, for me, theory of constraints has always been a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. It's a set of tools that we can use to improve a situation. Okay, so I want to keep it straightforward. I want to keep it very simple. We're going to use practical real-life examples. We're also going to do this in some of you will be familiar with Kolb's learning cycle. So as an adult, we have preferences in how we learn, and they'll be different for different people in the group. An effective learning cycle goes through all of those different preferences. So we'll do a bit of theory, we'll have a bit of pragmatic example and guidance, we'll then do a bit of active learning, a bit of experimentation, and we'll reflect on that in the end, and then we'll come back to theory, and we'll keep on going through that cycle many times within the program as well. Ellie was always very clear in his preference for using the Socratic approach as well. So he would always ask questions, and if you read the goal, you'll know that Jonah infuriates Alex Rogo by just asking him questions and not giving him answers. Well, I think my personal approach is yes, I agree with that, and there's a time and a place for some here's how you do it, and some very practical, straightforward, this is what you need to do. So what I commit to doing as the facilitator is, if you're stuck, I'll make sure you get unstuck. And I will give you some constructive feedback on what I would do in that situation. And as I said, sometimes there were various people, I'm not going to name any names obviously, but they were more impressed with the tool than they were with the outcome of using the tool. And I don't want to fall into that trap. Okay, so I want to have a program which emphasizes the benefit of using the tools and the outcome from using the tools, and hopefully to help a group of people turn into users of the tools who can get practical results. And that's one of my objectives. What else? So how are we going to do it? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to analyze a real world situation. So we're going to take a real situation. It might be your company, or it might be your client, or it might be, I don't know, a club you're involved with, or a charity, or whatever it is. And we're going to use that reality to practice using the tools on. Okay. Had a few discussions about how we do this. I don't want to use a case study approach. I'd rather we had a bit more skin in the game for this. I'd rather there was a bit more at stake, because it tends to force us to work a bit harder, to think a bit harder, and we can also go and get feedback as well. So we can go and talk to people in the company and say, look, I've been trying to think this through. Can you check my thinking for me? And we can get some input, some feedback, and improve our analysis by actually doing it on a real life situation. Next, as I said, okay, so based on Kolb's learning cycle as well. So any good executive or adult learning program, in my view, has to go through this cycle on numerous occasions. So theory, practical experience, experimentation, active learning, some reflection. Wherever you start on that cycle, you've got to make sure you're hitting all of the bases and going through it, and that's what I'm going to do. So when I design, I've got a big document I'm creating which designs the oh, it disappeared, look at that, a white document which specs out what's going to happen in each session, and how it's going to happen, in what order. Within that design, I'm constantly thinking about how I go through that cycle. And also fit into your schedule as well. So it's strange time in the UK. We're kind of coming out of lockdown slowly. I'm going to put up a schedule in a moment of the seminars and the dates, but they'll happen at the end of the week. And they'll happen at the end of the week for two reasons. So first of all, life tends to slow down a little bit towards the end of the week, and we've got a bit more time on our hands. So we're going to do short sessions on a Friday or a Thursday morning. It also practically fits around my schedule as well. My wife works in the healthcare system in the UK, so and she only works Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So I'm a primary school teacher on those days, so I'll be teaching another group of people for the time being. Although we did get news yesterday that they will be going back to school at the end of the month. Please God. So we'll schedule some sessions towards the end of the week, and as I said, they'll be short and sharp, hour or two at max, and then we'll do some seminars. And if we agree as a group together that we'd like to change the time to something more convenient, that's fine. No problem with doing that at all. Likewise, we've got some people in New Zealand who are thinking about joining. We've got some people who are thinking about joining from the States or Canada. The times just aren't going to work. So that's fine. I'll run two sessions, and I'll do a seminar for people who are east of the UK, and I'll do a seminar for people who are west of the UK, and we'll make sure it works for you. Okay, so there are dates. All of this is on the website, and as I said, this is going to be recorded. I'll share the slides afterwards, but everything will go on the website. the page that I've put up last night has already got this on there. Sessions will generally begin at around about 8 o'clock UK time. If we've got lots of people from the east of the UK, I'm happy to do it earlier if it makes it more convenient. I don't know what time it is for Lalicia, but I'm guessing it's 12 hours later, so it's later on in the evening, something like that. So it's getting quite late. If we want to do it a bit earlier, that's fine with me, no problem with doing that. But as you can see, each of the sessions that I talked about earlier on is on that schedule. And you get to avoid all the tedious stuff. I mean, who wants to fly at the moment? Even if you can fly, nobody wants to do it. So no flights, no transfers, none of that, staying in terrible hotels and eating unhealthy foods for weeks on end. So we don't have to worry about that as well. And best of all, you get to, oh God, there's a terrible typo on the screen. Look at that there. How did I not see that? I'll sort that out later on, apologies. You get to avoid being out of your business for a week or two as well. So as I said, you can fit it in around your schedule when it's convenient for you, and not be out of the loop for long periods of time. Okay, so let's move on. Almost there. Time to ask some questions at the end. So do the maths. You know, there are other programs that charge you $4,000 to attend, and you've got your flights, your transfers, your hotels, and subsistence, and all the incidentals that go with it on top. And then probably the biggest expense of all, which is obviously a week or more out of your business, which you can avoid. So if this was a normal iteration of the program, I'd be looking to charge somewhere in the region about £3,000 per participant, and to get a certain number of participants to make it worth my while as well. And that's based on the time, obviously, that goes in, the kind of return that I'm looking for, as you know, this is my business, so this is what I do to pay the bills and keep my family fed and all the rest of it. So I'd be looking to charge that. But as it's the first one, if you help me make sure that this is a really good program, you give me lots of feedback on how to improve it, and you pay by the 12th of June, then that's the price. Okay, so it's a 67% reduction if you give me a bit of help. Now, some of the places have already gone. I'm going to limit that to 10, not 10 participants in total, but 10 who qualify for this deal. 10 is all I need, really. The thinking process programs ran with less people than that back in the day. So I think that given my previous experience in the field, given the feedback that I can get from 10 people, we can have a very good program, and to make it even better for the next time as well, just with 10 of us. So I'm going to limit it to there. There is another option. If you do want to spread your payments, then I'm more than happy to do that. Still need to pay the first one by 12th of June, but then you've got another month on that as well. But after that, 1 second past midday on June the 12th, the price goes back to the normal level. And my guarantee, so if you're not happy with the program, and I mean entirely happy with the program, by the end of session 5, then I'll refund your money in full. No questions asked, no problem with that. I won't spend it. I will hang on to it until session 6. And then if nobody has raised any queries by that point, then I'll spend it. But prior to that, it will just sit in the bank and it'll wait for you. And all I ask is that if something's not working for you in session 1, 2, 3, or 4, you tell me. And if you tell me, then I promise I will do something about it, and I'll try and make it right. That's all I ask. But if you're still not happy and you want your money back, then so be it. That's fine. No problem. No hard feelings. What else? Yeah, places are limited. Now, as we're doing lectures and seminars, I can theoretically include lots and lots of people. So that's not a problem. However, wisdom and experience kind of dictates that I keep it relatively limited for the first iteration. So somewhere between sort of, I don't know, the sweet spot, I guess, is somewhere between 5 and 25, so it's quite a big range, but somewhere around there. I will cut it off at some point, because there will be, there's not just the time it takes to prepare the sessions on my side, there's all of the time in staying up to date and staying current with your analysis as you go through. So as you're sharing your work, your analysis of whatever it is you're looking at, I need to be with you on that analysis as well, to be able to guide you and to be able to help you to complete your analysis in a way that is effective, and then create a solution that really gets a result. And to do that for 25 people on my own is a big ask, and it's going to take a lot of time. Given the situation here in the UK at the moment, I don't want to overstretch myself and then let people down. So I will cut it off at some point. We can easily go up to 10, probably a bit more. Beyond 20, I start to get nervous. So that's that. So if you do want to join, my request is the sooner the better. Don't leave it to the 12th if you don't have to. The other thing I would ask you to do is follow this link. I'll put it into the chat as well, and I will. There's a form on that page. There you go. It's in the chat. There's a form on that page that gives me everything I need just to send you the invoice. Once I've sent you an invoice, if you are joining, thank you, and you can pay online. So you can pay with a credit card, you can pay with a PayPal, or you can send me a good old-fashioned bank transfer as well. That's not a problem. Okay. Failing that, if it doesn't work or any problems, just ping me an email on that address, and I will help. Okay, that's it, folks. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them and to talk it through. And I've got plenty of time, so feel free to ask as many as you like. Or you can all rush off and do other things. That's fine. It's up to you. But feel free to ask.
I've got one, actually.
Don't forget to take your microphone off, though, if you're going to do that.
Can you hear me?
Camille, you're very faint. I can just about make you out.
Could you hear me now? Better.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, sure.
Right. Just question from my side. You said about they will upload all movies to your website, so we've got access. So my question is, have we got live access? Because loads of courses doing like access for 1 year or 2 years, whichever.
Yeah.
So how does it look like with this access?
So I get nervous about promising something forever for obvious reasons, but what I guarantee is that you'll at least get 2 years, and if for whatever reason I'm not operating the website, or I've gone away and become a farmer or joined the priesthood or whatever, I will make sure that you get copies of the video, personal copies. Failing that, I'll stick them all up on YouTube so that you can view them wherever. But so yes, effectively the answer is you will get live access. How you get access might change according to circumstances, but I don't envisage any changes at the moment. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah. So yeah, the first place they'll go is, as I said, I'm creating a members area on the website. So there will be a members area for the participants of this course. All of the videos will be posted there. I'm looking at hosting options, but I'll make sure that I think it's only fair that you as paying participants are the only people who can see those videos. So I'm looking at getting the technology lined up to make sure that you have exclusive access to those videos, because you are the guys who paid for it. But if something unforeseen happens, I'll make sure that you've got your copies of the videos as well. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Hello, Alex, and everybody else. I would like to ask something too. I would
Yeah,
like to
sure.
ask a little bit about tasks. I saw that there would be 7, I don't know, 7 lections, maybe 7 lessons. And I would like to know how many homework should we do every time after the lesson, and what do you think? How many time do we need to do our homework? Would it take like 2 hours, or maybe because you are a specialist in it, and my practice with current reality 3, okay, for me it takes a lot of time. It's not like 1 hour. It's like 3, 4, 5. It depends on my situation, on my logical capabilities maybe. And then I would like to know how to implement this course in my real life and my other activities with daughter, husband, and everything else.
You're careful with those last ones. Be careful with those last ones. Yeah, so very good question. So think of it as 2 parallel streams, at least 2 parallel streams. So you've got the schedule of the seminars and or the lectures, and then the seminars, and then on top of that, you've got your analysis. Now, I will set assignments. I will also recommend reading that you do, or maybe videos to view, or whatever it happens to be. Now, as ever, this is an adult learning experience. Okay, so you're going to take on as much as you want to, and as much as time permits, and you've got energy and enthusiasm for. What I will say is I will make sure that you've got plenty of opportunities to extract the maximum value from the program. The time you put in is really down to you. The other thing I will say is that, like any skill, the more you practice, the better you're going to be. Yeah, I've spent some of the lockdown working on my house, and I'm not a kind of DIY guy. I'm not a builder. That's not my thing. But by the time I had done, 40 square meters of repointing the front of my house on the scaffolding, I was a lot better than when I'd started. Yeah, so the more effort you put in, the better you're going to be at this. Yeah, and sometimes it will be simple things. So writing a cloud is not a complicated process once you've got the structure in your head and you know that an action needs to be in D and D prime, and a necessary condition needs to be in B and C, and then a higher objective is in A. Once you understand that structure, you can start writing clouds. You can do 10 a day. And if you do 10 a day, you'll be a lot better than somebody who does 1 on the course and that's it. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be majorly complex. You don't have to write a whole current reality tree to understand if, then, because as a logical sequence. Yeah, you can practice it anyway. You can practice it with your kids. You can practice it in work. It's just thinking about different situations and then trying to formulate them. One thing that I've done previously, and I'll have to try and find a good article, but it's fantastic to pull an article from a newspaper and then go and apply the categories of legitimate reservation to an article in the newspaper. And all of a sudden, you dissect this article, and quite often it's absolute rubbish from a logical point of view, but you can apply those different rules to it. And it's quite a fun exercise, and start to see the logical leaps that are being made in a sentence. And actually, if you just apply those rules, but that makes you a better user of the process, if you like, and you become more skilled and more adept at using it. So, you know, simple thing. You can do simple things, or you can spend hours and hours slaving over a current reality tree. It's kind of your choice, but I'll give you opportunities to do both. Does that answer the question? Is that okay?
It sounds okay. Maybe a little bit. Could you tell would I have the homework every time after the meeting? Yes.
Yes. Not all of it will be required. Okay. I'll leave those decisions up to you. Okay. So this is, we're adults. You're going to decide as well. But yes, my plan is to make sure that each session there are some recommended activities at least. And then if you're going to do the analysis, some of them will be necessary. You're going to have to decide on what you're going to analyze, for example. So, for example, if it's your client that you want to look into, then that's great. Or, but you are going to have to make some decisions on that. But there will be tasks set through it as well.